Have you ever noticed the moment you stop chasing her, she suddenly starts chasing you? The second you pull your attention away, her texts get longer, her tone gets softer, and she suddenly misses you. That's not a coincidence, it's psychology. Because women aren't drawn to men who give them everything. They're drawn to men who protect their peace. Every high-value woman feels a magnetic pull toward a man who can say no. Not out of ego, not out of pride, but out of self-respect. Most men today have no boundaries. They bend to please, they overtext, they over-explain, and they give access to women who haven't earned it. And when you do that, you become invisible in her eyes. You blend in with every man who's desperate to be chosen, instead of being the man who chooses. See, attraction isn't built on words or looks alone, it's built on tension, and boundaries create that tension. They say, you can't walk over me, and you can't fully have me unless you deserve me. A man with boundaries isn't trying to control her, he's controlling himself. He's the calm in the storm, the one she can't manipulate with silence or seduction. You have to understand, a woman doesn't truly respect a man she can emotionally dominate. She might like him, she might even care for him, but deep down, she doesn't respect him. And without respect, attraction dies. So when you set boundaries, you aren't pushing her away, you're testing her respect. You're teaching her how to value your presence. There's a moment every man faces, the moment she tests his limits. She cancels plans last minute, she gives half-hearted effort. She starts talking to other men just to see your reaction. That's the test. Not because she's cruel, but because her instinct wants to know, can this man hold his frame under pressure? The weak man reacts, he argues, he pleads, he tries to prove his worth. The strong man pauses, he observes, he withdraws, and by doing nothing, he reveals everything. That pause, that silence, that refusal to chase chaos creates a ripple inside her mind. She realizes she can't control him, and that's when her respect starts to grow. Boundaries are not rules for her, they're standards for you. They define what kind of man you are, what kind of energy you allow near you, and how you expect to be treated. A man without standards attracts confusion. A man with them attracts peace. And peace is irresistible to a woman who's used to drama. Here's the truth most men don't want to face. Women test men not because they hate strength, but because they crave it. They're drawn to the man who can remain calm while she's emotional, firm when she's uncertain, and kind without becoming weak. That's leadership energy. That's masculine composure. And that's exactly what boundaries create. But most men sabotage that power by over-explaining their value. They think if they just communicate enough, she'll understand. But the truth is, your energy communicates louder than your words. When you have strong boundaries, you don't need to explain. She feels it in your tone, in your timing, in your silence. You don't tell her you're different. You show it through what you tolerate, through how fast you forgive disrespect, through how quickly you walk away from things that disturb your peace. That's what separates a man who commands respect from one who begs for it. Boundaries aren't walls, they're gates, and only those who value you should be allowed through. Now ask yourself, have you been letting the wrong people have unlimited access to your mind, your time, your heart? Because the moment you start protecting your energy, the world starts treating you differently, and the women who once overlooked you start looking again. Most men think setting boundaries will make a woman pull away, but in truth, the opposite happens. The moment a man stands firm on what he will and won't accept, something changes in her energy. Her tone softens, her guard lowers, because boundaries tell her one thing: this man has emotional discipline, and that's rare. See, in a world full of impulsive men, men who react to every text, chase every smile, and lose focus at the first sign of beauty, a man who can hold his line becomes unforgettable. Women feel safe around him, not because he's predictable, but because he's grounded. He doesn't get lost in her moods. He doesn't fall apart when she withdraws. His peace is his currency, and he never spends it cheaply. A high-value woman is not looking for a man who gives her everything. She's looking for a man who gives meaning to what she receives. When you have boundaries, your attention becomes rare, and rarity builds value. She feels it when you pause before replying, when you stop over-explaining, when you don't reward bad behavior with affection. It's not about being cold, it's about being clear. There's a secret language to boundaries, and it doesn't need words. It's written in your actions. When you say, "I don't argue over disrespect," and then you walk away the moment it happens, you teach her something powerful. You teach her that your energy isn't up for negotiation, and that creates attraction that no pickup line ever could. Because here's the truth. The feminine doesn't trust the man who gives her the world too easily. She trusts the man who makes her earn it, not through manipulation, but through consistency. When you show that your world has structure, that your emotions aren't toys to be played with, she begins to relax into her femininity. She can be soft because you're solid. Let's make this practical. You need 3 layers of boundaries: internal, emotional, and behavioral. Internal boundaries mean you control your thoughts. You don't let her reactions decide your worth. You don't chase validation through her approval. When she goes quiet, you don't spiral, you breathe. You remind yourself that silence is not rejection, it's space. And space is where your masculine energy expands. Emotional boundaries mean you don't absorb her chaos. If she's having a bad day, you don't mirror her mood. You remain centered. You don't fix her emotions. You allow her to feel them while you remain stable. That emotional detachment doesn't make you distant. It makes you dependable. Behavioral boundaries mean you act, not react. You don't engage in disrespect. You don't entertain inconsistent effort. You don't compete for attention. You simply redirect it to your mission, your growth, your life. That shift in focus instantly elevates your value in her eyes, because women feel safest with men who are led by purpose, not by impulse. And here's the paradox. When she realizes she can't easily break your focus, she becomes drawn to it. Your restraint becomes power, your silence becomes mystery, and your control becomes magnetic. Most men fail here because they confuse boundaries with punishment. But real boundaries are not about control, they're about respect. You don't use them to manipulate her emotions, you use them to protect your peace. That's the difference between ego and self-worth. Ego demands obedience. Self-worth requires respect. When you say no to disrespect, you're not pushing her away, you're pulling yourself into alignment. And that's what high-value women find irresistible. A man aligned with his standards. The kind of man who doesn't beg to be loved, he simply invites it. The kind of man who doesn't prove his value, he embodies it. The kind of man who knows that losing someone for standing by his truth is still a win. Because women chase what they can respect. And no woman, no matter how beautiful, can respect a man who betrays himself just to be liked. So if you've been wondering why your kindness keeps getting overlooked, it's not because you're too nice, it's because you haven't backed your kindness with strength. Without boundaries, kindness looks like weakness. But when it's protected by firmness, it looks like leadership. And leadership is what the feminine truly craves. Because when you lead yourself with discipline, she can finally let go of control and follow your energy. That's when attraction turns into desire, and respect turns into devotion. Every man who's ever been deeply hurt by a woman asks the same question: why did she lose interest when I gave her everything? And the truth is brutal. She didn't lose interest because you weren't enough. She lost interest because you gave too much, too soon, without making her earn it. Attraction dies when there's no resistance. Desire fades when there's no challenge. And respect disappears when there's no standard. You can't make a woman respect you by being available all the time. You make her respect you by valuing your energy more than her attention. See, female psychology runs deeper than words or gestures. A woman subconsciously scans your behavior for one thing: emotional stability. She wants to know if your validation depends on her approval. Because if it does, she knows you're not leading, you're following. And no matter how kind or loyal you are, if you lose your frame, you lose her trust. Here's the paradox. Women test you not to destroy the connection, but to feel secure in it. When she pulls away, goes cold, or starts acting distant, she's not always trying to reject you. Sometimes she's trying to find your edges. She wants to see if you collapse under pressure or if you remain calm and steady. Your reaction in those moments reveals more than 1,000 words could. A man with no boundaries reacts out of fear. He starts chasing, over-communicating, explaining, or trying to fix things that don't need fixing. But a man with strong boundaries doesn't panic. He lets her pull away because he knows that attraction breathes in space. He understands that his energy is not a leash, it's a gravitational field. And when it's strong, it pulls her back naturally. Women fall for men they respect. And respect isn't earned through words, it's earned through restraint. When she tries to make you jealous and you stay composed, she notices. When she gives you attitude and you respond with calm clarity, she feels it. When she withdraws affection and you don't chase it, she starts craving your energy again. Because in her mind, she's thinking, if I can't control him emotionally, maybe he's the kind of man who can lead me. You see, one of the biggest mistakes men make is confusing love with access. Just because a woman gives you her time doesn't mean she's giving you her respect. Respect must be earned through consistency, through how you handle conflict, through how you handle her emotions without losing control of your own. Women are emotional creatures, but that doesn't mean they want emotional men. They want men who can contain emotion, who can feel deeply without falling apart. That's why your ability to stay calm under emotional pressure is one of the most powerful attraction triggers that exists. It communicates dominance, security, and inner power, 3 things the feminine instinctively responds to. But here's what most men don't realize. Every time you break your boundaries for her comfort, you train her to see you as a follower. When you tolerate inconsistency, when you let disrespect slide, when you overgive to keep her happy, you're showing her that your peace is negotiable. And the moment your peace becomes negotiable, your value disappears. High-value men don't negotiate their worth. They don't explain why they're walking away. They don't justify their silence. They just move differently because their boundary isn't a line. It's an aura. It's the quiet confidence that says, I don't need to prove myself to be chosen. That kind of energy doesn't just attract women, it anchors them. She might challenge you, she might test you, but deep down, she's drawn to your steadiness. It feels rare, it feels safe, and it reminds her that real masculinity isn't loud or reactive. It's controlled, calm, and unwavering. Here's a secret most men never hear. The stronger your boundaries, the more permission you give her to be feminine. Because when you're steady, she doesn't need to be. When you're composed, she can finally let go. That's the balance. Your boundaries give her freedom. And when she realizes she can't move you, that's when you move her. So remember this, boundaries are not about keeping her out. They're about keeping yourself intact. Because once you lose yourself trying to please her, you stop being the man she was ever drawn to. There's a truth that most men never learn until it's too late. Women don't test your boundaries to hurt you. They test them to find out who you really are. Every sigh, every cold shoulder, every delayed text, every moment she goes distant or acts indifferent, it's not random, it's data collection. She's subconsciously measuring your emotional spine. Because the feminine is chaos by nature. It flows, changes, feels, and reacts. The masculine, in its pure form, is stillness, it's direction, it's order. And when those two energies meet, the test begins. When she starts pushing against your boundaries, what she's really asking is, can I trust this man to stay grounded when I lose control? If your frame breaks under her emotional waves, she knows she can't trust you to lead through life's storms. That's when attraction fades. A woman doesn't fall in love with your looks or your words. She falls for how she feels in your presence. And your boundaries shape that feeling. A man who stands firm creates emotional gravity. She feels pulled toward him, even when her mind tells her to resist. It's instinctual. It's psychological. Here's the mistake weak men make. They interpret her emotional tests as rejection, and they rush to fix them. She withdraws, he chases, she criticizes, he apologizes, she gets cold, he gets desperate, and in that spiral, He teaches her something devastating, that he values her approval more than his integrity. That's the moment she loses respect. Because once she senses she can emotionally lead you, the polarity dies. See, a woman will test you emotionally, but what she's hoping to find is certainty. Not perfection, not control, certainty. She wants to feel that no matter what mood she's in, your energy doesn't waver, that your calm is stronger than her chaos, that your silence is not weakness, it's discipline. Every high-value man understands this. Your reaction to her test determines whether she sees you as a man or a boy. When she throws emotional bait, don't bite. When she goes cold, don't chase warmth, create your own. When she questions your worth, don't explain, demonstrate it through your behavior. Because the man who reacts loses frame, but the man who observes gains power. One of the deepest forms of attraction a woman feels is when she realizes she can't shake you. You don't flinch under pressure. You don't chase validation. You don't fold when things get uncomfortable. You stay grounded. That composure, more than muscles, money, or charm, is what separates leaders from followers in her mind. And here's what's fascinating about female psychology. Once she realizes you can't be emotionally moved, she starts moving toward you. Her guard drops, her trust rises, she softens, because she's finally found something rare, a man whose emotions aren't owned by her moods. Boundaries create safety. They allow her to express herself without fear that you'll lose yourself. They let her be emotional without collapsing the entire connection. That's why women respect strong men. They feel secure enough to be vulnerable. But you have to understand something deeper. Your boundaries aren't just about her, they're about you. Every time you let disrespect slide, you teach yourself that your worth is negotiable. Every time you chase someone pulling away, you reinforce your own insecurity. Every time you overgive without reciprocity, you drain your masculine energy. That's why high-value men never argue about respect. They enforce it with distance. Silence is their weapon. Patience is their armor. They know that space is more powerful than confrontation. Because in space, she feels the weight of your absence. And that's when true attraction reignites. It's in that silence that her mind starts spinning. Did I push too far? Did I lose him? And when a woman begins to question that, attraction grows again. But this only works when your silence is rooted in strength, not ego. Ego tries to punish her. Strength simply detaches. Ego withdraws for revenge. Strength withdraws for peace. A man who operates from ego demands respect. A man who operates from strength commands it. That's the psychological shift that separates high-value men from the rest. Boundaries are not barriers, they're signals. They tell her, I value myself enough to walk away from what disrespects me. And that message hits deeper than any compliment ever could. Because in that moment, she doesn't just see a man, she sees a leader, a protector, a presence she doesn't want to lose. And when she finally realizes that your boundaries aren't negotiable, her desire for you becomes unstoppable. There's a kind of man who never has to chase women because his energy does it for him. Not through words, not through games, but through the quiet power of self-respect. That man understands something most never do. The strongest form of attraction isn't built on pursuit. It's built on presence. Presence that radiates calm. Presence that communicates, I don't need you, but I choose you. Presence that says, without a single word, you will never control me with emotion because I've mastered my own. That is the final form of masculine boundaries. It's not about rigid rules. It's about alignment. It's about living in such truth with yourself that your very energy becomes a filter. The wrong women fall away, the right ones are magnetically drawn in. You see, every boundary you set is really a declaration of identity. When you say, I won't chase anyone who disrespects me, you're saying, I'm a man of worth. When you say, I won't argue to be understood, you're saying, my peace matters more than my ego. When you say, I'll walk away from what drains me, you're saying, I protect what's sacred. And that self-respect, it's addictive. It challenges her. It awakens her curiosity. because now she can't predict you. She can't emotionally control you. She can't find your weakness in validation or approval. Instead, she feels your strength, and she leans into it. This is the psychology of polarity. When a man stands firm, a woman feels safe enough to be soft. When a man is centered, she can relax into her emotions. When a man leads himself, she naturally wants to follow. That's not control, that's harmony. But it begins with this question: do you trust yourself enough to lose her? Because that's what every test, every moment of distance, every emotional game is truly asking. Not, will you fight for me? But will you stay true to yourself even if you lose me? And most men fail that test. They fold, they chase, they trade their peace for her presence, and in doing so, they lose both. But the man who can stand in silence, who can breathe through rejection, who can stay calm when his emotions scream at him to react, that man becomes unforgettable. Because he's not trying to possess her, he's inviting her to rise to his level. Every woman respects a man who can walk away with grace, not in anger, not in pride, but in calm certainty. Because that kind of strength makes her realize something deep. He doesn't need me, but he chose me, and that choice means everything. Boundaries aren't about control, they're about clarity. You don't set them to manipulate anyone. You set them to define yourself. And when you live from that clarity, your life starts to change. You stop chasing attention. You stop explaining your worth. You stop trying to convince anyone to stay, because now you've become the one worth chasing. The most attractive men are not the ones who get the most women. They're the ones who can walk away from the wrong ones without bitterness. Because bitterness is what weak men feel when they lose what they never truly valued right. Peace is what strong men feel when they lose what was never aligned. Every time you honor your boundaries, you're telling the world who you are. And eventually, the right woman will recognize it instantly, because she's been waiting for that kind of energy. Not the man who bends to please her, but the one who grounds her. The one who reminds her that love without respect is chaos, and connection without standards is slavery. You don't have to be perfect to attract high-value women. You just have to be anchored in your purpose, anchored in your values, anchored in your peace. Because once you are, every woman who meets you will feel it, and those who can't match it will fall away. So from this day forward, don't chase being liked. Chase being respected. Don't chase her attention. Guard your focus. Don't chase what runs. Stand still long enough to let what's real find you, because the moment you master the art of self-respect, you'll never have to chase attraction again. Now tell me, which boundary are you going to start enforcing today? The one you've been too afraid to, but deep down know you must? Type it in the comments below. And if this message spoke to you, hit like, subscribe, and share it with a friend who needs to hear this truth. Because real masculinity isn't about control, it's about composure, and the world needs more men who lead with peace.